Hi, this is Mike Hendrickson from OSCON 2014 in Portland, Oregon. I'm here with Peter Hoddie from Marvell. Peter, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
So you guys have this Kinoma Create.
Yep.
And it's a JavaScript-powered hardware construction kit.
Exactly.
And what does it do?
Well, so what we've seen over the last couple of years is that there's all these great devices for making stuff, like a Raspberry Pi, like a BeagleBone. They assume a great deal of technical expertise on the part of the people who are using it. Right? So you better know a lot about Linux, you better be a C programmer, just like a lot of things you have to be able to do to get started. And what we found is there's a huge number of people who are interested in playing with a device like that, with tinkering, with making, who want an easier on-ramp onto that. And so we looked at the JavaScript world as really a great place to start. There are a huge number of people who use JavaScript every day on the web. There are a growing number of people using JavaScript to build servers from the Node.js community. And what we believe is that you can actually apply JavaScript to embedded devices as well and take advantage of all of the flexibility and power of the language to create new devices and power devices that way.
So if I wanted to create an app that accessed a piece of hardware, and let's say it's a web app, like I want to control the lighting in my home or something.
Yep.
Would I use something like this?
Exactly. You could use something like this. Let's open up the box. I'll show you what you might do. So, unlike some other devices, the Kinoma Create actually comes with a built-in screen. It's very nice. So you can actually see what's going on inside the device. You can add buttons. It's a touchscreen, so you can do things there. It also has built into it under the front cover breakout pins. So these connect to all the standard kinds of things you can buy from SparkFun or Adafruit, sensors, controllers, motors, and then you can program those using JavaScript. This device also has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, so you can connect it to the web, you can connect it to your phone. And it supports all kinds of nice protocols. So for example, it supports WebSockets, right? So you can actually use this to talk to a server with WebSockets or to talk to a browser inside your house running on your computer.
Yeah.
And so things like WebSockets, which is fundamentally a JavaScript API, work exactly the same on Kinoma Create as they do on your browser. And so it makes it really easy for people who have those skills to take it from the web and move themselves over here, start working on an embedded device.
So this is a consumer-oriented device.
It's more consumer-oriented,
More
we think.
consumer,
Yeah. Learning JavaScript is not something everybody on the street does, but it's a lot more people, I think, than are hacking the Linux kernel, for example.
Okay. And so what are some of the use cases you see, in the early adoption of something like this?
Yeah, what we're seeing is there's really two kind of distinct groups. One is kind of the traditional hobbyist, people who have ideas that they want to bring to life. We've seen things get put together there by some of our early seed sites. There was an aquarium controller that was done, very cool. So this could do all the sensing of salinity and temperature and water levels, but also could report that remotely and control the motors. So when the owner's outside the house, they can still have full control of that. We saw somebody do a project called Reassuring Box that let them, it didn't actually do home control, but home monitoring. So that the Create was by the front door, and when they went out the house, they would know the oven is off, the curling iron is unplugged, and everything is safe. Same thing at night, like I can check all those things are right, and I can go to sleep and know all is well. So really nice personal projects. The other thing we see is 10 or 15% of the people who are looking at this really have projects that have some commercial application in mind. That could be people have an idea for the next great consumer thing. It could be, though, in a lot of cases, is people who have a commercial use that may need a few thousand units. It's for their company's point of sale, or it could be for agriculture monitoring. And they need a place to build it that's consistent with a way to build it that matches the skills that their team has. And so by making it easier, Kinoma Create is a much more accessible device for them.
And you guys chose JavaScript because it was simpler as a language, and yet still powerful enough to control a device?
Yeah, I mean, it's known as a very forgiving language and an easy language to get started with because it's so forgiving. But at its heart, it's a real programming language. And the amazing things that are being done on the web and with Node show that. And so we love the fact that anybody can get started with it pretty easily, but that as you grow more sophisticated, you can do things and you don't have to switch languages. We also use it ourselves for production. So as a company, Kinoma, before we joined Marvell, was delivering JavaScript-powered devices with companies like Sony, with SoftBank, with NTT Docomo, with Palm, to commercial So it's not just a prototyping environment. You really can take the code that you develop here and use it in the final commercial device.
And so are there pieces of this that are open source, or?
Yeah, we took a pretty interesting approach to that. So some of the software is open source. It's Linux at the heart, so the heartbeat of it is, in fact. We are in the process as a company of doing the open source work for the JavaScript engine itself right now. And we have, when we launched this as a crowdfunding project in the spring, we open sourced through a Creative Commons license the circuit board design and the case design, so that people with hardware skills can go and see exactly what's there. They could design their own boards. They could hack our board. We also think the case is really important. It's beautiful, makes it easy to travel. This device is actually mobile. So back here, it's got a battery. So you can actually build something that will throw in your backpack and work.
And the two little prongs are...
Yeah, and these are fun. They're a little hard to get out in this particular prototype, but I will succeed for you. These are legs. And so the idea is you might not want to use this just lying flat or holding, but you might want to use it
as a stand, yeah.
And so you can use it in that orientation. You can take them, turn them around this way, and use them in that orientation. So it gives you some options in how you want to use it, because, of course, as a prototyping device, we can't predict exactly how somebody's going to use it, right? But we imagine people will take the case, and as their device comes into shape, they'll come up with an idea for a case that is really specific for that particular device, add some buttons or whatever. They can take our designs, 3D print their own case, whatever they want, and then wrap it around the same board.
And is this a sensor or is that a speaker?
This is a speaker and a microphone.
Okay.
So it's got a bunch, it's got all the stuff that we think people might want.
Commanded or hear from it.
Yeah, and it's all the drivers are set up, and it's all connected up through the JavaScript layer, so it's all ready to go for people to use.
Excellent. So where do you see this going in the future, these sort of devices?
You know, it's going to be really interesting to find out. We put this out on on Indiegogo as a crowdfunding project, and we found we did reach some of the web developers that we were after. But another thing we found was that the hardware hackers, people who do use things like Raspberry Pi and BeagleBone and Arduino successfully today, were actually really interested in what they told us is that having everything pre-integrated at the beginning saves them a bunch of time. Right? They don't want to bring up Wi-Fi again. The other thing that they were really clear on is that a lot of them aren't great at software. They're hardware guys. That's what they do. And if JavaScript will make their job of bringing up the code easier, they're very interested in that. Right?
And will it?
And it really does. I mean, it's so much easier. You don't need a compiler. You can literally just take source code files, drop them on the device, and they will run. All the work to talk to the sensors that you plug into these ports is done through scripts as well, and so it's just a much easier way to do it. It also picks up features of JavaScript. It uses event-driven programming for sensors, which is typically not done. They tend to be done in polling loops. And so we're making it easier to structure a real-world application around sensors by using JavaScript than people would normally do in traditional approaches.
And Peter, when is this launching?
So when we did the crowdfunding campaign, we committed to delivering it in September. This particular unit is actually one of the early units that we did in our manufacturing run in Shenzhen earlier this month. So we're building about 100 right now, and shaking out the last set of bugs we hope in the board, and then we'll do the first mass production run in September to meet that delivery date. And then folks who order it after that will receive it after the folks who invested in the crowdfunding campaign.
And what does something like this go for?
This is $149.
Okay.
Which is really a fantastic price when you add up all the things you get in terms of touch screen, color screen, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, audio, microphone. Everything that's there, USB. And consider the time that it would take to integrate those into other solutions.
So $149 September, and available where? Amazon, Marvell?
At the moment we're taking pre-orders. You can just order on the Kinoma.com website, and we'll make sure to get it to you. We're looking to bring up a web retailer when we have the physical devices available as well.
Peter, thank you very much. This has been excellent. Thanks.
Thank you.